The Stork in the Room. When I came home in the evening, I found an ultra-large egg in the centre of the room. It was almost as high as the table and bulged out to the sides in the same proportion. It rocked softly back and forth. Curious as I was, I put the egg between my legs and carefully cut it into two with my pocket knife. It was all ready to hatch. Crackling, the shell fell apart, and out jumped a stork-like bird, still featherless and beating the air with his overly short little wings. "What do you want in our world?" I felt like asking as I squatted down in front of the bird and gazed into his anxiously blinking eyes. But he left me and hopped along the walls, half fluttering, as though on sore feet. One helps the other, I thought, unpacked my supper on the table and beckoned to the bird on the other side of the room as he pushed his beak between my small set of books. He came right over to me, sat down on the chair, obviously a little used to these things already, and, with whistling breath, began to sniff at the slices of sausage I had set before him. But he merely speared them and threw them back at me. A mistake, I thought. Of course, you don't just jump out of an egg and start eating sausage. I could certainly use a woman's experience here. And I looked at him sharply to see whether I could tell from the outside what he'd like to eat. If he comes from the stork family, it occurred to me then, he's sure to like fish. Well, I'm prepared to get him even fish. Not for free, though. My means do not allow me to keep a pet bird. So if I do make such sacrifices, I want to get just as vital a favour in return. He is a stork. So how about when he is fully grown and fattened up on my fish, he can carry me with him to the lands down south? For a long time now I've been yearning to go there, and the only reason I haven't is because I lack stork's wings. I hastened to get paper and ink, dipped the bird's beak in and, without the bird's offering any resistance, wrote the following. I, a stork-like bird, pledge that if you feed me fish, frogs and worms, I added those last two foods on account of their low cost, until I am fully fledged, I will carry you on my back to the lands down south. Then I wiped his beak clean and once more held the paper up to the bird's eyes before folding it up and putting it into my wallet. But then I rushed out to buy fish. This time I had to pay quite a lot for it. Yet the fishmonger promised me that before long he would always have rotten fish and plenty of worms on hand for me at a low price. Maybe the trip to the south wouldn't turn out to be too costly. And I was glad to see how the bird enjoyed what I'd brought back for him. The fish was swallowed up with a gurgle, filling his pinkish little paunch. Day by day the bird made progress that bore no resemblance to the way human children developed. True, the unbearable stench of rotten fish never left my room, and it wasn't easy finding and getting rid of the bird's droppings. Also, the cold winter weather and the rising price of coal made it impossible to wear out the room, although it was extraordinarily necessary. But what did that matter? When spring came, I would be floating along on gentle currents of air to the sparkling south. His wings were growing, getting covered with feathers, his muscles straightening. It was time to begin practicing our flying. Unfortunately, there was no stork mother there, and if the bird had not been so willing, I imagine my instruction would not have done the trick. But he obviously realized that he had to be extremely attentive and go to great lengths to make up for the shortcomings of my ability to teach. We began with gliding. I climbed up. He followed. I jumped down with outspread arms. He fluttered behind me. Later we headed over to the table and eventually to the cabinet. But all our flights were systematically repeated, again and again. Kafka never finished the story of the stork and the man who wanted to fly south. Some people say that the stork found a job at the fish market and preferred to stay in the city where he had hatched out of the egg. Others think the man had too little faith in their flying practice and never dared to fly south. Still others, however, recall seeing a big bird soaring up from the roof of the building one day. And that must have been the stork with the man on their flight to the lands down south. But maybe something entirely different came to pass.